Alright, welcome to your next drafting video. This is the first drawing we're going to be doing after you've made your title block, and we're going to be doing the spacer plate. This is basically what would just be a metal bracket that somebody would cut out and use to create a space between two objects, and we're going to draw it. It's a pretty easy drawing. It's a single view drawing. We're just focusing on the front view. And it is full-sized. Our scale is 1:1. So by now you should have your title block completed. Like I said, this is the first thing we do on every single drawing that we ever make. And we're going to start out by just drawing the shape. We're going to dimension it in the next video, put all these measurements in, but right now we're just going to draw the shape. So the first thing I want you to do is we're going to start on the outside and work our way in. So I want you to imagine this whole thing as a giant rectangle, and if you need to do this to help kind of visualize it, go ahead and fill this in as a rectangle, just like that. So we're going to start out by drawing this rectangle. And if we look at our measurements, we will see that this rectangle is 6 inches tall and 7.5 inches across. So we need to use our X and Y axis on our drawing to make sure that this rectangle gets right in the center. So we're going to mark each of our axes, whatever the proper term is. We're going to mark each of these based on these measurements here, and then we're going to use those marks to draw our rectangle. Now let's start with the height here. We agree that our drawing is 6 inches high, so we need to center this rectangle on this axis. To do that, we need to take half of that measurement and measure up, half of that measurement and measure down. Well, if the rectangle is 6 inches tall, it doesn't take real long to realize that half of 6 is 3. So we're going to measure 3 inches up, 3 inches down. For this, you're going to want to either use your scale, or I'm going to use the T-square since the ruler's bigger and you can see my measurements better. So we'll go ahead and measure this now. We're going to start at the bottom, line it up here, and we're going to measure 3 inches down. So that's 1, 2, 3. Make a mark at the 3. Get a little closer and make sure my mark's at the right place. So we have a mark here, 3 inches from the center. Now we need to measure upwards. So I'm going to line up my T-square. Trying not to hit the tripod here that this camera's on. So we're going to line this up and we're going to measure 3 inches up. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make a mark, and there's our mark right there. So now we have the height of this rectangle figured out. Now let's figure out the width. The width of this is 7.5. So we need to find half of 7.5. Well, we figured this out before in the previous video when we were dividing this viewing window into fourths to begin with. Half of 7.5. So half of 7, go ahead and write it here, is 3.5. Half of a half is a quarter. So if we add those together, we get 3 3/4. So we need to measure 3 3/4 to the right, 3 3/4 to the left. Let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going to line up our ruler. 1, 2, 3, 3 1/4, 3 1/2, 3 3/4. Line that up, make a mark. Same thing on the other side. Line it up at the center. 1, 2, 3, 1/4, half, 3/4. Make your mark. So what we should have now is 4 marks that measure out our rectangle. So now what we can do is we can take our T-square and we can start to draw these lines out. I'm going to start with the top and bottom. We're just going to line up our T-square. And I'm going to draw a line, not too thick, not too dark. Sorry about that. I thought somebody needed something. Alright, so not too thick, not too dark. Draw the bottom line. And now we're going to draw the top line. Same thing. And there we go. Now we need to draw these verticals. Now I know, like we talked about before, it's tempting to take your T-square and put it up here like this, but we can't do that. Now I know it's tempting to take your T-square and put it up here vertically like this, but of course you cannot do that. We need to keep our T-square lined up on the left side of the board so all of our measurements are straight and 90 degrees. So for this part, we're going to use our drafting square. Line up the T-square on the left-hand side, and then we line up the drafting square on the T-square. So between the two of them, we now have our right angle. So I'm going to line up the drafting square with my mark. Draw a mark there. And we'll do a mark up here, like so. And that should leave us with our rectangle. Let me check the camera real quick, make sure you can see this okay. Alright, so we got our rectangle. Now, as always, you can choose whether or not you want to erase the overlap of lines before or as you draw, or do it all at the end. I like to do it as I draw so I don't miss anything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, just so it's out of the way and I don't have to worry about coming back to it later. Just like that. Alright, so now we have our rectangle. Now let's start putting in some of the features. So the first thing we're going to start with is right here we have a notch. So we're going to go ahead and put this notch in. We can see that this notch is 2 inches tall, 2 inches wide. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make marks here and use those marks to draw in our notch. So I'm going to you either take your scale, or I'm going to use this T-square again. I'm going to measure along the bottom of the plate. 1, 2, make a mark. And I'll do the same thing going this way. Line it up with the bottom of the plate. 1, 2, make a mark. And there we have our notch marked out. Now we can draw our lines. So again, I'm going to use my drafting square. And I'm going to line it up. And I'm just going to draw this line here. Just like that. Then I'm going to do the top part here. Draw a line just like that. Okay, now our notch is done. Before I erase this, I'm going to do one other measurement while I still have this bottom edge to measure off of. I'm going to go ahead and mark out the notch up here as well. So as we can see from this drawing, this corner that's cut off, this corner right here is 5 inches from the bottom. So I'm going to measure that out real quick and get it marked out. So I'm going to take my ruler, line up the bottom with the 0. I'm going to measure out 5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mark it out. All right. And we'll go ahead and finish marking out that corner right now while we're at it. So this corner is marked out. Now we need to mark out this corner. We see that this corner is 6 inches from the far corner, so I'm going to measure that out too. Take your ruler, whether it's your scale or your T-square. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make a mark at the 6. Alright, now that's marked out, I can go ahead and connect the dots and cut this corner out. So I'm going to line up my drafting square because I know this edge is a straight edge. I'm going to line it up like this so I can see my lines better. Line it up. Draw a line. There we go. Now I'm going to go through and erase all the extra lines. Gotta make this corner disappear. Sorry if this erasing is shaking the table. It's kind of a wobbly table. That corner disappear. Clean up this corner. And we're going to make this corner disappear. Get rid of these extra little marks that we don't want. When I'm done with this drawing, I'll go through and darken all these lines, so that way they all look about the same. There, and just like that, those notches are done. So, we got this notch done, we got this notch done. Now we need to focus on these two circles. Let's focus on this circle first. I can see here, these measurements are from the edge of the plate to the center of the circle. So let's go ahead and mark those out. We can see at the center of this circle is 4.5 inches away from this side. So I'm going to measure that out right now. Take my ruler, line it up with the top edge here. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Mark it out. We'll do the same going downwards. We can see the center of the circle is 1 inch down from the top. So we'll measure that out too. Line it up. 1. Mark it out. So now we can draw in our crosshairs. You don't need to make the line go clear across. You should have a general idea of where this circle should be. So we know it's right about there. Sorry, I keep moving the camera on you. And we also know it's right about there. Just like that. So now we have this circle marked out. Let's go ahead and mark out this circle before we go any farther. So we can see that this circle is 2 inches from the left-hand side. So we're going to go ahead and measure that out right now. Along the bottom, 1, 2. Mark it out. We can also see that this circle is 2.5 inches from the bottom. So we'll go ahead and mark that out as well. Take our ruler, line it up on the side here. 1, 2.5. We're gonna mark it. Now we can make our crosshairs on this one as well. Line it up with the mark. Draw our line. Line it up with our drafting square to make the vertical line. Draw a line. Now we have both our circles marked out. We're ready to draw our circles. Based on this drawing, we can see that this circle has a diameter of 1. This is the symbol for diameter. That's the symbol for diameter. So we need the 1-inch circle from your stencil. It's kind of hard to read these sometimes. They're kind of in a funny order. But I know that the 1-inch circle is right here. This is our 1-inch circle. It's labeled. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to line up all 4 of these tick marks. I'm going to line them up with my crosshairs. Get them lined up. We draw our circle. And there's our circle. Now we can do this one. Based on our drawing, this circle has a diameter of 2 inches. So I'm going to draw in that 2-inch circle. Look at our stencil. The 2-inch circle is right here. This middle one on the bottom. So we're going to line up our tick marks. like so. Just like that. Draw our circle. And there we have it. All right. So now our drawing is basically done as far as actually drawing it. Now we just need to erase all the unnecessary lines. Those lines include marks like these and our X and Y axis. We don't need that anymore. So we're going to go ahead and start erasing those. This is when your eraser shield comes in real handy, because it protects the lines you want, so you can get rid of the lines you don't want. So I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to erase these. Now when it comes to these crosshairs, you're going to keep the crosshairs, but they don't need to be this long. They should only be about 1/8 of an inch over the circle. Some teachers are really picky about how far over those go. I'm not especially picky about it. I'm picky about other things. So, we'll get those erased. Make this line go away. A lot of drafting is erasing lines. I'd get used to it right now. But it's also kind of satisfying. Every once in a while I'm taking my brush, cleaning off the shavings. Never use your hands to wipe away shavings on a drawing, because it smudges your lines. And you don't want that. Alright, here we're a little tricky. We gotta work around the circle. But it's nothing our eraser shield can't handle. Just like that. Get those shortened up. Almost done here. Now I just gotta get rid of these little tick marks as best I can. You might lose some of your line while you're erasing these, but that's okay, because the last step we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and darken these lines up, since they're in the right place and we don't need to worry about erasing them. Alright, that's pretty good. So now I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna darken the lines I want to keep. And this should go pretty quick. Just make sure you keep your T-square straight. Get all these darkened. Those darkened. You know, it's kind of interesting. Could you imagine drafting an entire house like this? I knew a guy who used to do that. It was really something to watch. There, our lines are darkened. Now the last thing we need to do, as far as the drawing goes, is fill in our information. So we can see here the name of our drawing is the spacer plate. Make sure everything is in all caps. That's important. Spacer plate. The scale, 1:1. And the date, don't put the date of that drawing. We're going to put the date of our drawing. And our drawing is 09 the 15th, I believe, 2020. Alright, so that's pretty much done as far as the drawing goes. We still need to dimension it, but we'll do that in the next video. So once you get past this, you're going to move on to dimensioning. Like I said, this is probably the easiest drawing we do, and I hope it was somewhat fun for you. We'll see you in the next video.